Shame is probably the most dangerous human emotion, and shaming someone is not only one of the worst things that we can do to them, but also to ourselves, since its effects are the exact opposite of what we want to achieve when we are shaming somebody. So in this video, let's explore why shame is so powerful and therefore so dangerous. Let's get right into it. Hi there, I'm Ivan and I've been a facilitator of ceremony for over a decade. And what do we do in ceremony? Explore our deepest traumas and wounds so that we can do the necessary work to heal them. Shame is without a doubt the human emotion that gets the most on the way of doing that exploration, because its nature and intention is to shield you from those things that you are intending to heal. So what is shame? It is an emotion that shows up when what we've done or who we are is opposite to what we believe we should have done or should be. Now, this is not enough to bring shame up. There needs to be one more element present. For shame to emerge, these actions should make you feel that you've done them because who you are, it is intrinsically wrong, and that makes you unlovable in those places. Shame acts as a shield that protects you from that thing that makes you feel that, which is why it shows up in those moments. It can protect you from something that you've done. For example, I'm ashamed of dating somebody that was so abusive to me. Or it can also protect you from other emotions. For example, I am ashamed of being angry at my brother for killing himself. In these two examples, the root of the shame is still the same, which is I believe I am unlovable. In the first example, we are ashamed because what's really happening inside of us is something like, the only reason why I could date somebody so abusive is because I am so stupid, or because I cannot read people properly, or because I am really easy to manipulate. And I cannot love somebody so stupid or easy to manipulate. Only smart people that are not easy to manipulate are actually lovable. Those other ones like me are not. Notice that even though none of those things are true, meaning that people who are easy to manipulate are as lovable as people who are not easy to manipulate, the definition of shame still applies, which is I've done something opposite to what I should have done because there is something wrong with me, and in those places I am unlovable. The belief I am unlovable, what really means is I can't love myself in those places. It is the person who believes that they cannot be loved for, let's say, being easy to manipulate. However, many other people might have no issues at all loving them, even though they are easy to manipulate. So obviously, that belief is not based on reality. So what is it based on? It is based on how much I can love myself in those places. And if I can't, then I project that belief into the world, believing that other people feel the same way. In the second example, the same thing applies. I am ashamed because I believe I shouldn't feel angry towards somebody who was suffering so much that ended up killing themselves. And so the internal process goes like this. I am doing or feeling something that I shouldn't be. There must be something wrong with me in order to feel this way. I can't love myself for feeling angry at somebody who decided to end their life. I am sure everybody else feels that way too, and therefore I am unlovable. Now, this example might be hard to get for a lot of people, meaning that a lot of you might agree that you shouldn't be angry at somebody who decided to end their life. Now, here's a thing that if you really get to embody, it will help you a lot in your healing journey. That is, everyone should feel exactly what they are feeling. I will repeat it one more time. Every person should feel exactly what they are feeling, because those feelings are consequences and not causes. They are consequences of the combination of our upbringing, beliefs, and traumas. And those things were never under our control or were ever our fault. I am not faulty for my upbringing. I'm not faulty for what my parents taught me or my society. And therefore, I am also not faulty for my beliefs and traumas, because those things are also consequences of my upbringing. To say somebody shouldn't be feeling what they are feeling is as ridiculous as saying that somebody shouldn't sweat if they're hot, or that they shouldn't be hungry if they didn't eat. Because feelings are consequences and they all have a valid reason to show up. Otherwise, they simply wouldn't. Yeah, but Ivan, I shouldn't be angry because he killed himself because he was suffering so much. How could I be angry at somebody's suffering? I understand that thought very well. It makes so much sense that it shows up. I actually experience that kind of thought all the time, meaning that I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling because of blank. As I said, it isn't necessarily something easy to get, but the truth is you can be angry at someone's suffering because their suffering has touched part of your pain that makes certain feelings emerge, and you are entitled to those feelings. That thought, I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling, is what gives rise to shame. In any case, shame acts as a shield of that thing that we are ashamed of. If you are shielded from the ultimate belief, I am unlovable, which is the moments in which shame shows up, as we've been talking about, then you don't have to be in touch with the absolutely unbearable pain that comes with that belief. I say unbearable because to be loved is every human being's most important and deepest need. So to believe I am unlovable gets us in touch with the deepest form of pain that we can experience, also known as our most important need going unmet. Now, how does this shield work? Well, by creating the effect of wanting to look somewhere else. When you feel ashamed, the first thing that you feel is to not want to look in there and to protect that place no matter what. That is why it is so hard to voice things out loud or to share with somebody something that you are really ashamed of. We hide it from others, and depending on the intensity of the shame, which also means depending on how little we can love ourselves in those places, we also hide it from ourselves. This is why shame is the most dangerous emotion. Its capacity to not let you see the thing that it is shielding you from can be so strong that you might never find out, no matter how much healing work you do, that there was something in there to start with. And it happens that our deepest wounds are the ones that have the most power over our will and basically running the show. A lot of the things that we do come from wounds that are repressed under a thick layer of shame. We don't have access to them, but they dictate how we act. And the way that we act from a place of shame is never toward our well-being or the well-being of others. Never. It is only pain in the driver's seat of your life, creating more pain inside and outside, with the added issue that you might not have any access to it at all, and if you do, you will very likely not want to look in there because that is the very nature of shame and the way in which it shields you. Now let's ground all of this theory in practice. Think about something that you are really ashamed of. Now, this is not necessarily going to be easy, but don't worry, you don't have to tell anyone. It is very important that you follow this exercise so that you can understand everything that you just heard within your body. I'll give you 10 seconds for those of you who don't want to pause the video, but I highly recommend to do it and take a minute to really think of something that you are deeply ashamed of, something that you don't want to tell anybody, something that you really hope to take to your grave with you. Okay, welcome back. Thank you so much for doing that. Now the question is, when you started thinking of those things that you're ashamed of, did you feel any level or a lot of resistance to even start thinking about those things? And when you did you notice that there was a need or a want to immediately stop? Or did you notice any resistance to even acknowledge that you are ashamed of those things? Did you notice thoughts like, nah, why should I do that? Or I don't really want to be thinking of that. Or this is really uncomfortable. If you didn't at all, then that probably means that what you thought about was not something that you were really ashamed of, which interestingly enough could be a consequence of feeling such intense shame somewhere else that your mind went straight into the thing that it is not very ashamed of, avoiding the real thing altogether, sometimes without you even noticing. It's okay. It is an automatic mechanism. It is just shame doing its thing. If you noticed some resistance, that force that pulls you away and makes you want to look somewhere else is the thing that I call the shield that protects you from it. It is one of the hardest experiences that we can go through to get really in touch with the places in which we believe we are unlovable. That is exactly what shame is there for. It is to disconnect us from the pain that comes with the belief that we are not worthy of love. So we can say that it's just one more tool within our toolbox that falls under the category of defense mechanisms. And defense mechanisms are sometimes necessary. Now, that belief is always learned, meaning that it's not based on reality. There is no such a thing as not being worthy of love. It isn't the case that some people are born worthy of love and some people are not. When you look at a baby, it's not that you think, that baby is lovable, that baby is not lovable, that baby deserves love, that baby that. Like, it just makes absolutely no sense, right? I know it sounds very obvious, but I'm trying to make it as evident as possible to get the point across. We are all born lovable. Even though there isn't such a thing, the belief that we are not worthy of love is very real. And it is usually rooted in not being loved by our parents because they have passed their beliefs on to us through their words or through their lack of words or through their actions that stem from their own unhealed wounds. Examples of this could be, I can't love you if you're gay, or if you have bad grades, or if you're needy, or if you're fat, or if you cry, or if you don't match the expectations that I have of you. The other big player on our belief of not being worthy of love is our society. For example, you are not worthy of love if you don't have enough money, if you have anger issues, if you drink, if you kill someone, or if some of your body parts don't match the way society thinks they should look like. And so then we feel shame for being poor, for our emotions, for not caring for ourselves, for killing someone, or before getting naked in front of some other person. Yeah, you heard me right. Even if you kill someone, you are still worthy of love. Now, of course, I am not encouraging you to go and start killing people all around. What I'm saying is that the only reason why you committed murder to start with was because you did not receive the love that you were worthy of, which, remember, it is our most basic and deepest need. Not receiving the love that we are worthy of can be so painful that pain simply can't be contained by the person, and it must come out in some other way, which usually does in the way of creating pain for others. As a matter of fact, the way that person would heal the need to kill is by receiving the love that he never got. Being loved in those places could have prevented the murder to start with and might even prevent it in the future. The more that belief is alive, the bigger the shame. And the bigger the shame, the harder it is to look in there. And in order to heal the wound that gave rise to the belief that you are not worthy of love, we need to remove as much shame as possible from the equation. In the example of the murderer, if we were to convince the person that it is understandable that he killed because he had so much anger trapped inside that he couldn't do anything with it, and no one was there to receive it, that eventually that anger took over his decision making, blinding him temporarily about what was right, if we would let him know that he couldn't have done anything different with the set of conditions that he had. If he were to say it was terrible, horrible, a complete mess up, a big tragedy that I killed, but I do understand that I could not have done anything else with my anger, then some shame would be removed and he would be able to look in the direction that shame was protecting. After shame is liberated, guilt will then arise to give a sense of making things right. Shame is a dangerous emotion that makes you avoid, whereas guilt is actually a good emotion that makes you take responsibility and do whatever needs to be done to repair. Shame and guilt usually arise together. In that case, shame will make you want to hide, whereas guilt will make you want to take responsibility. And depending on which emotion is stronger in that moment, that is what you will do. Let's say that you break a glass at somebody's house. The guilt will probably be stronger than the shame, and even though it is possible that you might want to go somewhere else and hide, which is stemming from the shame, the most probable thing is that you'll stand up right away and clean up. Unless you've been shamed by your parents so badly for breaking a glass at a very important dinner table in a key moment of your childhood, creating a very deep wound, that this situation triggers it, and it might be so unbearable that you might start shutting down and actually go and hide. The glass is one example, but I'm sure that you can find situations that apply to you in which your need to go and hide is much stronger than what the situation really calls for. The things that we can do out of shame can be extremely destructive. Lying, cheating on someone, sexual assault, making people feel terrible about themselves, betrayal, and last but not least, shaming others are all consequences of shame. It is one of the most powerful and destructive emotions that we can go through. In my opinion, more than fear. We shame people all the time, not only directly when we say things like shame on you for doing that, but also in every little situation. A mom sees their child spilling food on the floor and says, "What have you done?" Or a wife sees the husband mixing the white and dark clothes in the laundry and now all the white clothes are tainted and she says, "How couldn't you know that?" etc. etc. Every time we ask things like, "How come you didn't know this?" or "How could you do that?" or "What have you done?" we are not really asking a question. What we're really saying is, you should be ashamed of that. And every time we do that, the person will have a bigger inclination to hide and less of an inclination to take responsibility, which happens to be the exact opposite of what we want to achieve when we are shaming someone. In the majority of the cases, we shame people because we want them to do what's right. However, we would have a much bigger chance of that happening if we would just let them know how we feel without shaming, as that would bring in them a healthy sense of guilt rather than shame. We shame others because we have been shamed and through that also taught that that is how we express our feelings instead of literally say how we feel. If instead of saying, "How couldn't you know that white and dark clothes don't go together in the laundry?" we would say what we really mean, which is, "I am angry at you for ruining our white clothes," then what we're doing is expressing our feelings without shaming, which reduces drastically the chances of the other person needing to hide. Otherwise, what we're doing is the exact opposite, which is shaming without expressing our feelings. The other reason why we shame people is to punish them. There is nothing more painful than to be judged in those places in which we are already ashamed of, because it confirms the belief that we aren't lovable in those places. We shame to punish because we have not been taught how to express our feelings properly, especially anger. So we find punishing other people as the only way in which those feelings can come out. A friend of mine told me that when she was a kid, her mom used to tell her that she had terrible grades and that she was very ashamed of her. I can't even describe how damaging that is, especially if we do it to children. In all of these cases, the person will be always more likely to hide and continue doing the thing that you shamed them for, instead of removing shame so that they can look inside, let guilt emerge, take responsibility and resolve the issue. I can't even describe the things that I've heard and seen from participants in ceremony about the things that they have done out of shame and how liberating it felt to them to be received in those places in which they didn't believe that they could be loved. To receive them fully, hear them, understand them, it is one way in which they actually felt loved in those places. In those moments when they are received, which is a form of love, then the belief that they are not lovable gets challenged, and they learn that if other people can love them in those places, then they can do that as well. And that is one of the most freeing experiences that we can go through. Anytime we meet anybody with shame, including ourselves, which by the way, we do that a lot, it only perpetuates the trauma. So, what can we do about it? 1. Be careful with questions like, "What have you done? How could you do this?" etc. Instead, try to express how you feel. 2. Know that every part of you is lovable. The parts that you don't believe you are parts that have not been loved not because of you or because you are not lovable, but because of whoever was supposed to love you and didn't. It was their negligence, not your unworthiness. 3. Every time you feel resistance to look into a place within yourself that you know is not because of fear, it is most likely shame. Notice if you will have a tendency to look somewhere else. If so, know that you are fighting against our strongest defense mechanism. So take it slowly and meet yourself where you're at. And 4, search for someone that you trust can listen to something you don't think you can tell anyone. Whoever that person is, if you manage to tell your secret once and you are received, it will challenge that belief and it will weaken the shame around it. This is the first step to start the healing process around it. Hey, I'm recording this after the video was already finished, but I wanted to give you a little gift. It is a summary of everything that you just watched, nicely put together in a beautiful PDF, so that you can take a look at it anytime that you need to refresh your memory. This will give you access to the PDF of this and all my other videos. The link is in the description below. There is a lot more that we can talk about around the topic of shame, especially around sex, and sexuality. So I will make sure to make a video around the topic of sexual shaming. But in the meantime, and as always, thank you for your interest in healing and for lending me your attention. Before you leave, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because I just started this channel and in these initial stages that helps out a lot. And I'll see you in next week's video. Click on the left square to watch another video I made on a related topic. All my content is free. If you appreciate it and wish to assist me to continue releasing this kind of content, please consider supporting me on Patreon. You can also follow me on my socials and subscribe to this channel.